Well, hey there team, welcome back to the channel and welcome to Hotel Galactic. It's the game that we're having a look at today. Now, if you're not across it, I do overviews on this channel. It's where I have a look at a game for 2 hours. It's the Steam refund window. Steam reckons you can make up your mind about whether you want to keep a game or not in that time, and broadly speaking, as a rule, I agree. And would say 20 hours in, you're probably not going to change your mind about how you felt 2 hours in. So it's a short, punchy video, broad strokes info. Keep it around 10 minutes and then you can make up your mind on your own. Also, as a little bit of a running experiment we've been doing for the past few days, I'm asking people for the first time ever to subscribe to the channel if you're not already. It seems statistically a lot of people aren't subscribed. We've been doing this for 2 days and I've got an astronomical amount of subs injected in the channel, which is setting it onto a snowballing upward trajectory. I don't want to get too excited and count my chickens and such, but it's looking to pay dividends and it's very helpful. So I appreciate everyone that's already subbed already, and if you enjoy this content, just daily short form overviews of interesting games, then please do subscribe. It's helping me out so much right now. Okay, so Hotel Galactic, it kind of answers the terrible question, can a game be exceptionally beautiful, enrapturing, making you want to play it so badly and yet be broken to a point where it's actually unplayable? And the answer tragically is a resounding yes. Not all of these are glazing puff pieces, and it's usually easier when a game's just abjectly terrible in all aspects for me to dunk on it. Same as praise, I suppose it goes both ways. So this sits in this really horrible, uncomfortable, disappointing spot that at the time of this video going up, which is, it's about to come out, short of them doing some sort of magical last second patch that patches like the 5 different game-breaking issues I've come across, there's something really wrong going on here, which breaks my heart, because if you're looking at this, if you clicked on this, you're probably attracted to it for the same reasons I am. It's the second game this month that's got this kind of Ghibli-esque art. Wandering Village had a bit of that as well. You should check that out, by the way. Excellent game. But this is beautiful. It reminds me of at least the memories I have of Spirited Away. Now, I'm not a Ghibli dude. I'm not against it, but I'm also aware of the look and, the cultural zeitgeist around it. If a game looks this way or a cartoon or whatever, then people will say Ghibli-esque, right? But it does. It gives me these flashbacks because I watched Spirited Away in cinemas. Little old me going to an indie cinema to check out this, this interesting, relatively high-profile anime that at the time was still outside of my wheelhouse. And I have very fond memories of, vaguely, I must go back and watch it, of them kind of running a sort of retreat, right? It's sort of like a spa house or a hotel or something, right? But it's a place you can go for spirits or something. So no doubt, Hotel Galactic has drawn heavy inspiration. So aesthetically, artistically, yeah, it's all there. It looks and feels like it's come out of that studio. But mechanically, for a setting, the idea is that you're running your own little sort of hotel. There's a narrative story component. There's a couple of main characters. They're all gorgeous and cute and very charming. And even the little background things, there's frogs that were sort of uncanny valley, tripping the horror button in my head and I couldn't figure it out. It's because they don't hop. They get up and walk around. They kind of almost strut wide-shouldered like they're doing a WWE entrance and then wave at the camera with their love heart pupils, and everything about the art and the aesthetic, the world design is so beautiful. It's one of the coolest, most prettiest games that I've ever seen. I was going to say played, we've got to be careful with that. But here's the thing, when a game's not broken, there's some actually excellent ant colony management mechanics where the fidelity, which would be the party trick, it's easy enough to do this, right? You can construct a side-on set of rooms, right? Like the color by numbers of this sort of genre is easy enough to replicate and get right. But what do you bring to the table? And what this actually does bring to the table is really clever and unique. Examples being that, like, while you're building in a two-dimensional plane, that sort of limits things like traffic. I play Oxygen Not Included quite a bit, and coming up with a corridor solution is a big part of that same sort of building mentality. Well, with this, the idea is that you have main rooms that behave as you would expect, like a dining room or whatever, and they just use a pass-through. But for the guest rooms, how to explain it? They represent half in depth. People use terms like 2.5D to describe games that do this side-on perspective, but they have some depth profile to it. In this, when you make a room, basically it takes up the back half of the Z-axis, and the front half becomes a corridor. So within a square, it both occupies the front side corridor and the back half room, and the way that this is implemented visually is it's just a corridor, and you can see the door closed just like the corridor of a hotel. And if you mouse over that section, it will cut away, sort of like, I guess, The Sims with walls cut away, that sort of thing. And then you'll see inside the room, and then you can decorate it and all that. It is so clever, and it works so well. And again, it's married together by this hotel aesthetic. Other things are the whole mini game of serving people food. I'm a big sucker for what I call food porn ever since Final Fantasy 15, right? A lot of Asian games, and I suppose it makes sense because you could argue this is an Asian art style, have this real obsession with succulent, beautiful food in a lot of different games, and I'm there for it, man. As someone who loves crafting mini games, making food and meals and all that in different games, I think it's married together well with that sort of almost modern movement of, again, food porn. Very Japanese specific though. And in this, again, I've only spent so much time with it, and it's been a struggle uphill, and I've had to put it down because it broke. But you can craft menu items and meals with a level of fidelity which I haven't really seen, but it's not over encumbering, but it's challenging. Again, if you like crafting food in something like a Valheim or whatever, right, like more of a survival crafter where they get a bit more into the food profile, this seems to be doing something similar. To the point where, one of the starter dishes I made is I dragged the chilies onto the chopping board. I dragged pasta into a cauldron for boiling. The chilies, they get dragged off the board into the cauldron as well. I had like a little side fruit that I put straight on the plate, and then you can drag the cauldron onto the plate. I'm using my hands a lot, sorry. So you plate the whole thing. It's a little fiddly. It took a bit to figure out what's going on there. So 50-50 intuition and a bit clunky. But once you get it, you got it. And, you've plated up this multi-part dish with different levels of prep and all that, and then you turn it into a recipe and you put it on the menu and you serve it up. And it seems that you probably have to make custom dishes for certain types of alien species that stay at your hotel. It's not really apparent in the early going, but that's some of the coolest stuff that I've done. But again, the other shoe's got to drop. We've already not even alluded to it. I've just explicitly stated that there's so much that's really wrong with a lot of this game that needs fixing. Some of the stuff is mildly frustrating, but when you have 5 things stack up, the 6th thing that you might have ignored in the first instance compounds. It kind of becomes proof positive that there's a problem with the development under the hood. But a little issue that started to really grind at me is when you scroll, every time your mouse clips over an interactable, it stutters. Not a load stutter, but more like an item selector stutter, but it's only for a split second, so it's not really hugely embuggering, but it takes a while, and I had to think about it. I was like, why isn't this a smooth experience? So if you're moving your camera around, you find it kind of micro stutters a lot because your mouse is somewhere on the screen, and as you move it, from one screen to another, your mouse is going to clip like 5 different things along the way, whether it's a bed that could be moved or a station to be interacted with, and that whole thing just has to go. You have to get rid of that. It's so infuriating because, like I said, it's not a micro stutter performance issue, but it manifests as one, and it has the same effect of kind of making it a bit miserable. Other issues, like I said, they started to present themselves, they started to stack up. It was trying to get me to do quests to craft food for the servants, but there was no storage space for that food, and yet at that stage in the game, I didn't have the capacity to craft the food, so I had to kind of just wait. So I'm sitting there and the game wants me to do other objectives. I can't do them. I had to wait days and days for the servants to start actually getting hungry. It seems maybe it's generous, maybe even it's a tutorial generous thing to start clearing the supply box because I couldn't build one in reserve to then try and backfill and pass the objective. So that was frustrating. But the real problem was when the clock in-world broke, or maybe it didn't. Something broke. The rhythm of this game is that the guests come at night time. They come on like a sky ship. They check in. They'll wander around, they'll take a meal that you order for them. Then they'll check out in sort of like at dawn. People checking out will get picked up by a new ship. So your nighttime cycle is like 3/4. Except at some point, for no reason, the clock broke. It just wouldn't turn. Time wouldn't move forward. So what's going on there? I couldn't check guests in or out. I mean, some were turning up for meals, but the day-night cycle didn't seem to be progressing at all. So something was going on. Some of the guests were still moving through time. The clock wasn't. I saved, I exited, I came back in. The clock was still broken, but all of a sudden now I had a whole line of guests get dropped off inexplicably at my already full hotel, so you could almost call that an exploit. So there's another break. It would seem just reloading the save delivered me some guests because, I don't know, it's trying to read what time it is and the game's not telling it, but it's a buggy mess. I was going to say it's a technical mess. That's not necessarily true because, like I said, with the cutaways and even the mechanical components like design, art, soundtrack, concept, so much of this is right, and yet it seems to be riddled with a lot of game-breaking stuff. And again, that can't just necessarily be patched straight away. I've only played the game for what, like an hour and a half? Because I had to hang it up. Once I realized that reloading my save wasn't starting the clock, it was time to stop. And here's the thing, I'm enamored with this game. It's very clear that I say this with a heavy heart, but at the same time, if a product goes live and it's asking for money and it breaks in such a way that it cannot progress in the first 2 hours, kind of deserves to be blasted. So, you know, with a sort of heavy heart, apologies to everyone that wants this to be good. And part of me wants to apologize to the devs as well, but like also fix your game, guys. What's going on here? As artistically beautiful a contribution to the medium as it might be, this is still a product. It's asking X dollars. Something across the street's going to release at the same time, asking X dollars. Off the top of my head, I could be covering Wu Chang right now that's sitting in my library. What's the other one? Let Them Trade. It was between this and that. And, you know, it's a little bit frustrating when you give the airtime to something that's broken. So, let's wrap it up there. I'm sure this hasn't come across as me trying to bash the game, but also buyer beware. Do not buy this until you've confirmed that there's been patches, check the discussion, check the reviews, that sort of stuff, whatever the avenue is. And so I hope my video, at least at the point of release and recording, stands as a cautionary tale. Be very careful. I want this to work. I want to love it. I do, but it needs patches. It needs work. So tread carefully, my friends. And yeah, look, finally, if you made it this far and you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. We're running this experiment for the month where I'm actually asking for a change. I haven't asked in all these years, but I'm doing it for a month. I've only been doing it a few days and my subs have skyrocketed, so it seems like I should have been doing this all along. Anyway, team, let's wrap it up there. Might just leave it there for the time being, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.